What's up, Buck Doug with D&E in the Garage. Let's talk about automotive news for the month of September. The very first story I want to talk about is one that I read. It was an article I read from J.D. Power and Associates. They took 16,000 people. They put them in 2019 vehicles, model year 2019 vehicles, and they observed how they interacted with the different electronic systems in those vehicles. It's no secret that cars today have a much higher level of electronics being offered, whether it's infotainment centers or security protection systems, collision avoidance systems, stuff like that. And what they wanted to do was determine, are people using these? Do they like them? Are they using them correctly? Are they benefiting? And the answer was, people are turning them off whenever possible. A lot of these systems, if you can turn them off, they observed people were turning them off. And different numbers, about 30% of the people were just shutting down the infotainment centers. You know, the big screen in the middle, and you plug your phone in, it's got CarPlay, and it's got your navigation on there. People are just shutting it down. Just give me the radio. They didn't even want to mess with that. The big one, the one that was shocking, and the reason that I decided to add it to this month's news segment, 60% of people with collision protection systems that were capable of being turned off were turning them off. That's lane departure warnings, that's following distance warnings, a variety of other different sensors that basically are designed to prevent collisions, whether it gives you an alarm that something is going wrong, or if it physically applies the brakes, turns the wheel, does something like that. People are just turning them off. They don't like the beeping. They would rather be left alone to drive their own car. And I dig that, man. I dig that in a big way. I don't like these extra systems in the vehicles, personally. Obviously, my 20-year-old WJ doesn't have any of that crap, but my wife's Jeep Compass has the auto start-stop. You get to a stop sign, the engine turns off. You take your foot off the brake, it turns back on. The first thing I do before I even pull out of the garage when I'm driving her car is I reach down and I turn that thing off. I freaking hate it. It's the worst, especially in the summer. It turns the air conditioning off. In my opinion, it's putting unnecessary strain on the starter. I don't know what that's going to look like when the starter gets a little tired, but I was interested to see that other people are agreeing with me. They don't like these extra systems. Now, does that mean that these will fade out and fade away? Likely no. Likely no. When it comes to safety, progress only goes one way. So now that these things have become standard, they will likely always be standard. Now, the reason that's a bummer is that this is how cars are getting more expensive, right? Vehicles are just, the price goes up and up and up. And the reason is all this new technology that's being forced into it, whether it's stuff that they are offering just because consumers may want it, or if it's becoming regulation, government regulated, you have to have this, whatever the reason, they're cramming all this extra tech in there, it's jacking the price up, and it turns out the consumers don't even friggin' want it. If I could have paid a few dollars less and not had auto start-stop on the Jeep Compass, we absolutely would have done it. Another interesting aspect of this article was they asked these people, hey man, I just saw you turned off lane departure. Yeah, I don't really like it. Okay, does the vehicle you just bought have it? Yeah, it does. Will you look for a vehicle that does not have it in the future? Yes, I will. They were finding people are going to seek vehicles that don't have these extra levels of technology. Now, this is not across the board. This is not all systems. There are plenty of systems people do like. It was only 30% turning off the infotainment. My wife's vehicle also has CarPlay, which I thought was a frivolous thing when we first got it. I love it now. I'm considering putting a CarPlay head unit in this WJ that I drive daily. It's awesome having all your stuff right there. So this is not across the board, but I did think it was interesting that a lot of these safety systems that are clearly being implemented now so that we can fine-tune them so that we can use them for fully autonomous vehicles, which I am completely against. I mean, it's clear. I don't think anybody questions that is the end goal here, right? So there you have that. By all means, leave me a comment down there in the squawk boxes if you've had any interaction with some of these high-tech systems they're putting in new vehicles and what your interpretation of them are. My interpretation, all of my interactions are I could do without it. Just let me drive my own vehicle, right? Now, the next thing, I tried really hard. There's a ton of news about how the auto industry is going to be impacted by, I'm going to call them geopolitical factors. Let's go with that. And I think you all know what I mean. China, the United States, this, that. And I tried to find a way to approach that topic, and there's just no way to approach it without opening a whole can of worms. I'm not poking that beehive. Just know that if you're wondering what's going on in automotive news, the end of August, beginning of September 2019, there are a lot of questions about what's going to happen to the price of new vehicles if relations between the United States and China break down. The concern is raw materials, electronics coming from over there. Now we're trying to get things to be built here. So if the raw materials come from China and we're doing the assembly in the United States, and China and the United States are, I'm trying hard not to use the word trade war, but what does that do to the price of a vehicle? That's as far into it as I'm getting. You're more than welcome to leave me your opinion down in the squawk boxes, but I'm going to ask you not to because, oh God, politics sucks, man. Next on the list, Renault, FCA, they're talking again. What was it? I think my first news segment in June, we were breaking the story that they were talking, and then they weren't talking. They're on again, they're off again, they're kissing, they're not kissing. I don't care. I don't care about the potential Renault FCA merger. I pray it doesn't happen, but I'm just tired of hearing about it, all right? Stop talking about it. If you decide to merge, tell us after it's done. That's all we're going to say about that. Moving on, strikes. The auto workers are striking. The big three are in trouble. There are strikes imminent for Fiat Chrysler plants in the United States, as well as GM and Ford plants in the United States. Contracts are coming up, coming due, and the workers are voting as we speak. As I'm recording this video, by the time it gets out, there might even be strikes in place. The auto workers want more money. They want better or more hours. A lot of them are part-time, and they've been part-time for years and years and years, and they want to be given that full-time. There are some benefits issues, workers not getting dental, not getting health care, and I was reading into this, and I was trying to decide, is it, I mean, obviously it's newsworthy, and it could seriously impact the auto industry, and I'm asking myself, do I report on it? Is there enough there to report on it? And then as I was reading into it, I found an interesting little side note to this. Now, when you hear about somebody striking, you assume they are striking with their union against their employer. That's how it works. But the interesting thing here is the auto workers are actually just as displeased with the UAW, the United Auto Workers Union, as they are with their employers, Ford, Chrysler, GM. The allegations being levied are that the UAW has been taking bribes from the big three for years and years and years to concede in favor of the big three instead of their employees who they are paid to represent. Now, I know the idea of a corrupt union is not exactly breaking news, but it means that this whole thing could play out in a very interesting way. And as I was reading this, I had a thought, and it was almost dissonance in my head, and I'm going to share it with you, and I want you to understand before I share it with you, I feel for the auto workers. 100%, man. I worked in an environment where I was hired part-time, and I was not promised full-time, but it was implied that after a year I would probably get it, and I didn't. I've been in positions where I felt like I was underpaid. I get it, man. And you guys do hard work, and you deserve a fair wage and to be taken care of. But here's the thing, and just play this out with me. I'm not offering my opinion on it, but we're always yelling at the top of our lungs, bring the jobs back to the United States, build cars in Detroit, right? I know I am. So we do that. The big three, they abandon plants in Mexico, India, China, and they bring the jobs back to Detroit, and then stuff like this happens. And I'm not saying this doesn't happen in other countries, but it's got to be hard. You're already paying the workers in Detroit more than you have to pay the workers in Mexico, in India. We know that. That's why they outsourced in the first place. They bring them back, and then they have to deal with this. I'm not saying it's right, and I hate it, and I hate that these are the facts we have to deal with. But at a certain, I mean, you can, when you look at a situation like this is a huge headache. You can kind of understand where they're like, screw it, we're going to India where the people are glad to work for half of this and not complain about it. It's difficult. I would like to know what you guys think about it. I was reading through this and I was really feeling for the auto workers, and I still do, and I know some of our viewers are the very auto workers I'm talking about, so I'd love to hear your point of view. But then you kind of play the tape all the way out, and it's like, well, shoot, I hope something like this doesn't force jobs out of Detroit. You know what I mean? Because obviously you'd rather have, I mean, maybe you'd rather have a poorly paying job than no job. I mean, I guess I would, right? So we're gonna have to keep an eye on that. Another interesting thing is, I know Fiat Chrysler right now actually suspended some shifts at a couple of their plants because there's been a dip. All right, the auto market has been going. Everybody's been bracing for either a dip or an all-out crash. Hopefully not an all-out crash. I think we're feeling the dip. It's tapering off a little bit. So this may be a bad time for the strike. You know, maybe if they're not needing as many workers, I don't know. It'll be interesting. We'll keep an eye on that for sure. Now, two other quick things I wanted to talk about. They are two vehicles that we don't have a ton of information on, but we're starting to get buzz, and they're all but confirmed they're coming. We just don't necessarily know what they're coming with. We've got something real cool, and we've got a total turd. Let's talk about the total turd so far. Apparently, there's a feeling out in the world that Toyota left a hole when they canceled the FJ Cruiser in 2014. Personally, I think they righted or wrong when they canceled it, but people have alleged for years that there's a hole in their lineup. They don't have a dedicated off-road offering anymore, because the Tacoma and the Land Cruiser, that's not what they are. They're not dedicated off-road. The Land Cruiser is just a big SUV. Yeah, it has off-road capability, but it's not it doesn't compete with the Wrangler, and the Tacoma's a pickup. So yeah, most pickups have off-road potential. Anyway, point is, the vehicle that they're going to use to fill this hole is actually a vehicle that we've all been looking at for years, especially if you have watched the D&E New York International Auto Show videos. I made fun of it 2 years in a row, assuming it was just some dumb concept that was never going to get made. It's the TJ Cruiser. It's the toaster oven on wheels with the incredibly, I don't want to call them aggressive, interesting lines we'll go with. That I thought they've been trotting out the same concept every year at the auto shows, and I thought it was just a thing they brought to be fun, but apparently they're giving it very serious thought. It's alleged to be going on a Corolla platform, so I don't really know how you take a Corolla platform and get a dedicated off-roader that competes with the Wrangler or lives up to the FJ Cruiser name, because honestly I don't like the Cruiser, but yeah, it had some off-road potential. You know, they gave it a lot of thought. I know guys that are putting tons under them and making a go of it, so it'll be interesting to see. They want something to go in between the RAV4 and the Highlander. They want to have something with some dedicated fun options, and I guess this is the direction we're going. Cool. Not cool at all. Good thing is Toyota is giving us something to hate for years to come. Now, a vehicle that I'm surprised we haven't heard more about, because apparently it's relatively far along in its production, is going to be the Ram Dakota. The Dakota left us a number of years ago, and since then there's been no truck under the 1500. Side note, does anybody else find it weird to call them just Ram trucks? I do. Like the Ram 1500 is fine because that's what they were before, but the idea of like a Ram Dakota, I don't fully understand why they had to splinter that brand off. They're Dodge trucks, you know, like I still call them Dodge trucks. It's always what they're going to be. So if I call it the Dodge Dakota, I apologize. But they're talking about bringing the Ram Dakota back for possibly 2020, which is crazy. 2020 as a 2021. So they would release the 2021 Ram Dakota for sale sometime around September of a year from now, really. That is what they're suggesting, and if that timeline is to be believed at all, which I'm not saying it's concrete, it's just a number that's out there, production must be somewhat far along. Now, the question is, what is it going to look like? I think they're going to want to be very careful about introducing a pickup so close to the release of the Gladiator. The Gladiator is their new Halo car right now. Another article that I passed up that I guess I'll mention right now, there's a bunch of articles about how the Gladiator has surpassed Wrangler as they're calling it the add-ons king. Whenever you buy a new vehicle, you have the opportunity for add-ons. Now Jeep Wranglers are famous for this. You know, a lot of cars, like when we bought the Compass, there were no add-ons to get on the Compass, but a Wrangler, you say, okay, I want the bumper, let me get the diff covers and the grab handles, and you know, they got the whole brochure, and they start ka-ching, ka-ching, racking it up. The Gladiator has surpassed the Wrangler for making the most extra money for FCA through add-ons. The average Gladiator buyer spends an extra $1,000 on add-ons, whether that's not packages. You know, you get the thing with the package, and then you go through the catalog and you say, all right, I want the bumper, I want the D-links, I want the winch, I want the whatever. I mention all that to say they are riding the Gladiator pretty hard, and I don't think there's any chance that they want somebody releasing a truck under the same family, FCA, that could cannibalize it. So they're going to stay as far away from that as they can. I do not anticipate the Dakota will get dedicated off-road packages. I do not believe it will get a lot of fun packages. I think they may, obviously they're building a truck to compete with the Colorado, which is out right now, and the Ranger, which is coming, all right? That's why the Dakota always existed. The Colorado that already exists has an insane off-road package. The ZR2 off-road package is probably the #1 competitor for the Gladiator. If you are buying a Gladiator for its pickup truck-ness and its off-road capability, there's a very good chance you considered the Chevy Colorado. It's got the roll harness and lights and all this. They're pretty darn awesome. The Ranger, I don't know for a fact what the off-road packages will be, but there will be off-road packages. They will be aimed directly at the Gladiator. I don't think Dakota will have that. Other than that, I think it might just be a miniature 1500. Which I think would be cool. 1500s are looking real good these days. This was the news for September. Let me know what you guys think. There's some stuff in there that I imagine will elicit some opinions. Give me your opinions, man. I'd love to hear them. Alrighty, now just a quick bit of channel news. For about the past year, we've been dedicated to getting you guys 3 videos a week. We post on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, as often as possible that we can hit that schedule. Well, we're going to change that up a little bit. You're still going to get 3 a week. It's still going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but we're going to structure it a bit. Eric has decided to take on Wednesday as his own day. So Wednesdays will be Eric's upload day. So every Wednesday you can look for a video from Eric. You can absolutely give him feedback, let him know what it is you want to see, and he will try to cater his content to that. I'm sure you guys have noticed Eric is real good. He's technical. He's more technical than I am, much better with computers and whatnot. He does a lot of our product reviews. He likes to get his hands on stuff, test it out, figure it out for you guys. So that's where Eric really shines. So look forward to that. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for watching. See you next time.